let's talk about Apple and Disney. So this rumor comes up all the time, and
It does.
just for history, if you don't realize that Steve Jobs at one point was the largest individual shareholder of Disney.
Mhm.
And that came because Disney purchased Pixar, which Steve Jobs started. That came out
Yep.
of when he was at Next and
And he
started
was a huge
Pixar.
part of that deal.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you want to read, not just for this, but uh, Bob, what's his name? His book's over on my shelf. Let me grab it.
Lesnar? No, no, um,
Bob Iger. Bob
Iger.
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 Yeah, so he's got a book out called The Ride of a Lifetime. I've read it a couple of times. It's really a leadership book, but it's his stories about rising up through the ranks and becoming the CEO of Disney. And now he's back as the CEO because the Bob that came after him didn't work out.
Yep.
So, um, but he talks about going through this, and when they were just about to announce the deal and Steve Jobs was going to become the largest shareholder in Disney, that's when he revealed that he had liver cancer. And so
Hmm.
Bob Iger was one of the few folks that he revealed that to. And he says, I think you need to know because I'm about to become your largest shareholder. so, um, so anyway, this keeps coming up. And Bob Iger has been quoted as saying that if Steve Jobs had lasted longer, that I think we would have merged and been brought
Yes,
together.
I
And it
think
makes a
so.
lot of sense, right? Because if I think about, there's three companies that I kind of put into this, three bigger companies that I kind of put into this. Apple, Disney, and the Lego company, especially Lego stores, right? There's a
Hmm.
reason that if you go into a mall and there's an Apple store and a Lego store, they're close to each other.
Yep.
That's deliberate on their parts. And you get a lot of the same customer service and those kinds of philosophies. And same thing for Disney if you go to a Disney property, right? I mean, you're going to get
Hmm.
that extra attention to detail. They want control of the customer experience. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the cruise ship section of this. So, there's a lot that I think overlaps here. And put aside, because I know a lot of the podcasts and stuff have talked about, well, they're two different companies. It's so out of Apple's wheelhouse. I don't want to go into any of that kind of stuff, but I want to talk about if they were to merge, what does it do to us as consumers, right? What are the things
Hmm.
that it would, um, that let's stay positive. Let's just talk about the advantages that we would get as
Yes.
consumers um, if these two companies merged, right?
So I know for me, definitely from a customer service and just a service standpoint, a lot of would change more on the Disney side than Apple, right? Because everyone uses Apple as the model. So you talked about like customer service and stuff in the Lego store and in the Disney store. I can see just in ease of use kind of things with the way subscriptions go and the way services are packaged and bundled. You know, I know they have the Hulu, Disney, ESPN kind of package things like that. I can see cheaper prices, and I can see just ease of use when you're navigating stuff like that. I can see um, better customer service when you're dealing with Disney or you know any of the other companies that fall under that. So uh, from a consumer standpoint, I can just see things getting better. I don't see things being worse, you know. And I know a lot of people are negative when it comes to stuff like that, like oh things are gonna be so much worse. Or look how Apple deals with adult content and stuff. They said the same thing when Disney bought Fox. You know, oh we're gonna lose the more adult content, the more everything has to be PG-13. We're going to lose all the rated R stuff. No, th- everything's still going to be separate. I don't
And
think
Apple
Apple's going to
didn't,
have any influence on production.
but everybody thought when Apple TV launched that it was going to be a whole bunch of family friendly
Yeah,
stuff. And I got to be
yeah,
honest, I mean, how conservative I am in media that I watch. There is
hmm
very little interesting on Apple TV that I'm willing to watch because they've gone. I mean, like C with Jason Momoa was ridiculously violent.
hmm
And even their shows like Foundation and a bunch of this other stuff, there's language, there's other things that aren't
yeah,
appropriate for families.
yeah,
And and that's their choice, which is fine. But nobody
Yeah,
thought they would do that, right?
yeah.
And
Some of
so
the topics
I
that
don't,
they touch on, yeah.
yeah, I don't worry that the Apple of today is not the Apple that you can say, well, the Apple would never get into something like that, because
Yeah,
they are.
they are.
But I also think it'd be interesting for Apple to have all of that intellectual property, right? I mean, I feel like Disney already owns all of my childhood, right?
Yes.
Disney proper plus Marvel plus Star Wars. I mean, even
Hmm.
National Geographic to a certain extent, right? I mean, owning all of that stuff. I mean, if I had to pick one streaming service, there's no way I would pick anything other than Disney Plus, right? I mean, the only thing
Yes.
that's not in there really is like the Star Trek kind of stuff. For
Yeah.
me, that's the one I would have to go through. It would not be Netflix or any of those with the DC universe or any of that kind of stuff. It would be Disney. And so I think
Hmm.
about, they own that intellectual property. What could they do from hardware? Even like something as simple as making cases for their devices with all of that
Hmm.
intellectual property on there, right? Iron Man special edition iPhone, kind of
Yes.
thing, right? So,
Yeah, this actually licensed. Yeah,
yeah.
that looks really good. Yeah, I'm with you.
And then content for Vision Pro. I mean, we know that's not out yet, and Disney's already announced it. But can you imagine just having the direct integration between the hardware and the
Hmm.
content, and just everything Disney produces going forward is IMAX and Vision Pro, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it
yeah.
just would be
So
super incredible.
I mean, we talked about they kind of hinted at some of the things that Disney's working on, and that was just with Disney Plus.
Yeah,
Imagine having a whole section at a football game that'll put you in the seats, an
yeah,
ESPN section, put you in the seats, and you can look around the stadium and stuff and watch the entire game from that perspective on the Vision
yeah,
Pro. That's just with just through ESPN and their partnerships with the leagues and stuff like that. But imagine not having to shell out $1,500 to go to an NBA, finals game to sit way on the roof.
yeah,
You'll be in the ESPN seats, which are on the sides with your Vision Pro.
yeah.
Stuff like that is just it gives you something to look forward to.
And that's not
You
going to
know,
kill in person, right? I mean, they're still going to go. Like,
no, no, it's
so,
not. It's not.
I mentioned that I'm a University of Utah fan, and when we lived in Utah the first time, we had 4 season tickets, and it cost me like $500 for the whole season for 4 tickets,
Hmm.
right? It was crazy cheap. Well, they
Yeah.
moved to the Pac-12, and now they're going to move to the Big 12 or Big 10, whichever one. I keep getting them mixed up,
Hmm.
right? Next year, but I can't even afford to pay the fee to get into the club that allows me to get onto the waiting list to then possibly someday purchase 2 season tickets, right?
Yeah.
And so if I think about that, yeah, I can't afford to pay $1,000 a seat per game,
Hmm.
right? But if they had a subscription service that said, okay, you're going to pay $50, or even let's say it was $150, something like that, right? And I could
Yeah.
watch it in my home, I would do that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um and I still don't think it's going to change ticket sales at all,
At
right?
all. At
Because
all. No.
so yeah, I would love to see that kind of stuff. And that gets into this where I think would be incredible to see what this combined organization could do, because you start talking
Hmm.
about integrating Apple hardware into the theme parks,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yes.
you walk in and you don't need anything but your phone, and it's doing all of the things for you. It's alerting you.
Yep.
I mean, you can do some of this now with the Disney app, but just how much more it could be direct integration, right,
Hmm.
into all of this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
if I think about Disney's Imagineering team, which is all about building the tech and the robotics and all of the things for the rides and the experiences, it isn't just rides anymore, right? All of those
Hmm.
experiences that go on at the theme park. Just imagine the combined Apple Disney ability to take that kind of stuff to the
Yeah.
next level, right? I mean, I, I just think that would be absolutely incredible to take these two organizations, especially where Disney, I mean, their theme parks, it's
Hmm.
all about experience. I mean, you see the things all the time about how they're trained to handle kids with special needs. And I saw a
Yes.
article one time about um, a kid that had some needs and was just getting overwhelmed and went and stood next to a railing that was close to the lake that's in the middle of the park, and
Hmm.
how Snow White was able to walk up and just stand with him and kind of help him calm down. And just, it's just unreal. Now, put
Yeah.
aside the whole labor disputes and all of that kind of, I don't want to go into that. Like I said, let's just stay
Yeah.
positive. But
Yeah. Let's
I
keep it
mean,
light.
yeah, I mean, you start adding in all of Apple's tech into that. And instead of, you're walking up and you go into a restaurant to order, or even a fast food joint within the park, and it's all done on an
Hmm.
iPad instead of, all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that would be unreal. And I would love to see what those two combined groups could do to come up with for new rides and new
Yeah. Yeah.
experiences. And it's got to be cheaper to build a theater and put a whole bunch of Apple Vision Pro devices on somebody's face, right, than it is to
Yeah.
actually build the
The
whole
whole the
space.
whole tower, the whole roller coaster. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. So when you talk about them combining hardware and stuff like that, I always think how cool Apple in the Apple Store, right? The phones that they carry are like a customized iPhone. It's a cash
Uh-huh.
register basically, and they do everything. They set appointments. They even print receipts out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, imagine how they can use that technology and instead of lines, having to scan everyone's tickets and things like that, they're using those devices. And I don't know if you've been to Sam's Club, they have that scan and go where it's just like some kind of scanner at the top, and you just take your basket through So imagine moving through lines and
Yeah.
or the entrance in the park, or even going to your hotel room. And I know they have the Apple Key thing where you can unlock the door and stuff now, and I'm seeing that more in hotels. But imagine just walking up to the door and it identifying you through your
Yeah.
iPhone or through some other technology and stuff like that. Imagine how convenient that would make things. So, yeah, just adding that technology in would make the parks more efficient, you know?
Well, think about this. Bear with me on this one. So when Dustin was super little, we were the Jazz opened a new practice facility, the basketball team here, and
Hmm.
Zion's Bank, who I worked for, sponsored the facility. So their name is on the facility, right? And so as employees, we got to go to the grand opening of the facility. And when we
Okay.
got there, it was real close to Dustin's birthday. Excuse me. And so we made arrangements that the Jazz Bear, which was the mascot, would come bring him a
Hmm.
hat.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's time, and the Jazz Bear come up, and he gives the hat to the wrong kid. Right. And so then we had to go
Yeah.
back, and then he had to fix that with the kid, and then he had to still do something with Dustin. So, we talk a lot about this personal experience. Well, what if, you know, every character, cast member in Disneyland or Disney World had an
Hmm.
Apple Watch,
Yes.
and it popped up a message. I'm getting a little sci-fi on it here, and I'm not talking about, you see it all the time when people have jobs they need to go do. I'll leave it to your imagination about what kind of, you know, assassins are out there getting these kinds of
Yeah.
messages, right? But imagine that today I'm playing the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and
Hmm.
my watch is on my wrist, and they know where I'm at, and they can say, "Hey, there's this kid. It's in this area real close to you. They're there right now, and he really wants to meet the Beast. And oh, by the way, here's the picture his parents authorized us to show you."
Yeah.
And
So they
so,
know who exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and so Beast walks up and says, "Hey, Bobby, how are you
Yeah.
doing?" You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And how amazing that kind of an experience would be for a kid that went, "Oh my gosh, the Beast knows my name," and
Yeah,
knew that I
yeah.
wanted to
Or they
meet.
just walk by and just say, "Hey, happy birthday, Jack," or
Yeah,
"Happy birthday, Danny." Yeah,
yeah,
that is really
exactly.
cool. Eh,
So I just think about how amazing that would be. And this is on my list of things to do with my grandkids, right? Is
mhm.
to have a nice big family experience where we're all in the parks for 3 days.
Yeah.
And when I think about doing kinds of things with my family, the only organization that I think about wanting to do that in, besides going camping, right, which is has nothing to do with any company, is
Mhm.
Disney. I don't think
Yeah.
about, do I really want to go do that at Knott's Berry Farms or SeaWorld or, Six
Yeah.
Flags or any of that kind of. We've got a Lagoon, which is owned by Six Flags here in Utah. Okay, fine, I'll take you there for a day. But if I
Mhm.
think about that once in a lifetime experience where I tell everybody, grandpa is paying for this part
Hmm.
of it. You just bring your souvenir money and your food money, and we're all going to be there at the same time.
Yeah.
The only place I can think of to do that
Hmm.
is Disney.
Is Disney.
That's it.
And who would you trust with all of that personal information besides Apple?
Apple, right?
Yeah.
And so if this was all secured by Apple and I could go in and I could plan the whole trip and say, hey, this is my family, this is our reunion, this is who
Hmm.
we all are, this is when we're going to be there, this is when the kids' birthdays are, this is who the kids love, right? And if I could just put all of that stuff into Apple system, not Disney proper, but if I
Yeah.
could put all of
But
that
Apple.
into Apple system
Hmm.
and that changes the experience that we have, yeah, I'd pay
Yeah.
extra for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Same
If I
here.
needed to have
Same
an
here.
Apple Watch on every person's wrist to make that happen,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, no, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And that's why I say, you know, I can only see from a consumer standpoint, I can only see the benefits. Now, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some downsides to it too,
Yeah.
but as far as the customer experience goes, there's only one way, and that's up. You know.
So, Jason, let's wrap this up by two other experiences that I think Apple combined with Disney. And, Disney owns cruise ships. So you're the
Hmm.
resident cruise guy. So originally, my understanding is Disney licensed everything out to other cruise operators and just went, yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is not working for us. And so they've built their own
Yes.
ships, right? And the experience is more expensive, right? It just
It
is.
is. Yeah.
And but that sounds an awful lot like Apple saying, "Yeah, we're done buying Intel chips. We're just going to build our own because we
Yeah.
want to control our own destiny." So, how would you see? I don't think Ben. Have you been on a Disney cruise? I don't think so, right?
So we hadn't, and you're right. It is a more expensive, uh, a more expensive trip. And to put this in perspective, our for the same price for our 8 day family vacation that we go on and almost every September, 7 or 8 days, depending on the week. Um, it's equivalent to a 4 day trip on Disney. So
Yep.
it is a much more expensive. Now we are going to go when the kids get a little older. We're waiting for my daughter to hit a certain age. She'll be older. We are going to do the Disney cruises, but you know they have a new ship coming. I believe it's called a Treasure. That's hitting the waters next year. Um, the technology they include in these ships is phenomenal. It's awesome, and I don't think there's no Apple technology going on in it now, but they are using in some of the Disney resorts the Apple Key, right? And that's
Right.
basically where you tap your phone to your lock to unlock it, so you don't have to carry around a key card. So on ships, we use these our door keys now, our key card or sign and sale or ship pass or whatever. That's what we use as currency on the ship. So being able to digitize all of that, everyone has their phones with us anyway. If you don't need a ship card to get into your room to make purchases on the ships, you'll just basically be using Apple Pay, or you know what I mean, or one of their cards
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Um, Man, it just makes things so much more convenient. We're walking around in swim trunks and flip flops anyway. Yes, we're still carrying our phones, but if we didn't have to have a lanyard or have a key card or have some other form of payment or something
Or
like that, yeah,
or
yeah,
just your
just having it
watch,
on your
right?
watch. Yes, exactly. Because I keep my watch on, and yeah, being able to make purchases and stuff just by double tapping on my button and tapping it, man, I can see that technology just improving things,
Yeah.
by leaps and bounds. I'm excited for that.
So you've got grandkids too that are going to be
Hmm.
coming up. I mean, if Apple and Disney combined and had this magical Apple Disney cruise, would you take kids and grandkids all at the same time, like I was talking about for Disneyland or Disney World? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Definitely, I'll be there day one.
Yeah. So, and
We would
so,
be on that ship.
and you talked about this, but if we talk about Apple Tech and Disney resorts, I mean, think of everything in your hotel empowered on an iPad, or you just
Mhm.
had an Apple TV in the room, right, where you could interface with everything. And for a character to know that y'all just checked into your room and you've given permission for them to know that that's where you are and to knock on your
Yes.
door and say, hi, I just wanted to say hi. I mean,
Yeah.
just the experience of that becomes, and one of the places, I don't think I'm going to do my family reunion in Disneyland. I'm probably going to do Disney World.
Hmm.
Because the other place that's there is like all of the Harry Potter stuff, which my kids, not my grandkids,
Yeah.
but my kids, they were that age,
Yeah.
right?
They
When
were
Harry
they were
Potter
big
was
on
there.
that. Yeah.
But they have an RV resort called Fort Wilderness. Now it's already ridiculously expensive because that's the other thing. If Apple and Disney combine and you get this extra experience, just expect it to be more expensive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
just plan on that, right? But I can imagine an RV park powered by Apple,
Yeah.
right? And connected to the Disney Apple network. And I mean, I already want to stay in this place because you take a ferry to the park instead of having to go parking and, all of these kinds of things. But just
Hmm.
this whole concept of, this is a once in a lifetime thing, right? It's absolutely
Yeah.
be once that I'd be able to afford it. So I think about that, and like you said, there's probably are some downsides and stuff like that, but I just got to imagine this would be the way to go. So I'm
Yeah.
not a shareholder of Disney or Apple.
Yeah.
I should
Same
have bought
here.
Apple a long time ago, but if they want my opinion, I'm in. Unless somebody can tell me all of these big negative things that come in, because I think of that experience. That's what I would want my grandkids to
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Well, and I think like we said, there's something negative in everything, and negative people will be able to find all of the downsides. But I just think there's way too many benefits to not see this as a positive. So, but we'll see. Because, like you said, when we started the conversation, this rumor has been around for a few years now. It's been going around for a few years. So it's one of those things, just like the Pro model iPhones being delayed. And it's one of those things where we keep hearing about it, but is it really going to happen?